YouTube, what is going on? It is your boy Keezy. It ain't easy being Keezy, and today we're gonna be talking again about Balenciaga track shoes. I am on like my third or fourth pair of Balenciaga tracks, but there is a small dilemma that I have with Balenciaga track shoes, and what that is that there's a couple which I think are maybe factory flaws to some of the pairs depending on which ones that you buy, and I'm gonna run through them. I think there's only about 3 that I can complain about, and I don't know if this is a real thing. I haven't really looked it up. This is just experience of me buying the shoes, wearing the shoes now for a couple months, and just kind of going through that experience. So I'm gonna go through it as best as I can. It might be kind of like a ghetto video, but I'm gonna show you and explain to you exactly what I mean by factory flaws. So without further ado, let's get it. Okay, so for the first thing that I noticed, and it depends on what pair that you buy, and I don't mean by like the colorway that you buy it, but right here, so in the front of the shoe, you got like this one layer right here. It has 2 pieces of like rubber or fabric or whatever this is, and they stick up a little bit. Now, I highly recommend if you're gonna buy this shoe, make sure you ask to try on multiple pairs if you're in the store, right? If you're in a Saks, if you're in a Barney's, if you're in the Balenciaga store, whatever, like ask them to try on multiple pairs, because sometimes what happens is that you're gonna try on a pair and then this part is flat, which is what you want. You want these to be flat, right? You want these to lay down flat. I mean, this is considered to be pretty flat. Now, sometimes you might get it where this part, it rises up too high and it just looks really funny. And it looks really cheap, and in fact it almost looks fake. And I was trying to figure out whether or not the reason behind that was that the way the laces were tied, and I'm coming to a conclusion it has nothing to do with the way it's tied, because I was in the store for a good 20-30 minutes like trying on the shoe, just kind of like walking around in it and stuff like that, playing around with this, trying to tie it in different ways, and I couldn't get it for this thing to come down because I was trying on different pairs. Then I asked them and said, hey, can I try on, you know, a different pair? And then the dude was like, yeah, and then he brought out a couple more pairs, and then I ended up trying it on, and then these ones were a lot flatter, and I was happy about that, and I made sure I bought that one. So I think it is a factory flaw. It has to be, because some have it, some don't. It's the same colorways, even on this colorway too. I bought this one again today. I went to Saks Fifth, and these bars here, or these little pieces of fabric, were sticking up way too high. It was like basically the same issue, and I said, hey, can I try on another one? They said they didn't have another size 44, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to Barney's. So I went to Barney's, they had it. It laid a lot flatter, it was a lot stiffer, almost as if it was knitted inside the shoe tighter than the last one. It's completely different. So my assumption, it has to be some kind of like factory flaw to it. So to better help you understand what I mean by the part of the shoe that comes up. Now, if you step in the shoe and then you step up like this and kind of bend the front, sometimes it can do that. I don't know if you see this part that comes up. Some are more drastic than others, but also don't be alarmed. I mean, most pairs do that, and usually the pairs that do it, they do it on the inside of the shoe, maybe not so much the outside. Now, if you bought a pair and it does it on both sides, I'd probably either return those ones, exchange it for a different one, same colorway, ask them if they have somewhere in the back that you can try on, and then make sure you try to like bend it. You can bend it, try it on, you know, put a little pressure on it and see how it goes. I'm telling you right now, the laces have nothing to do with it. I've tried to play with these laces a lot already to see whether or not it would come down, but I don't know. I think the best way for Balenciaga to fix this problem is that they could have created something in here to connect it, so then it would lay flat. It would have some kind of like heat pressed machine that would basically permanently make this flat. Unless they designed it that way and they wanted it that way, I don't know, it's hard to say. And I will say to make something like this, I mean, this shoe is not simple. There's almost too many layers. I think one of the guys at the Barney store was telling me that there's 96 different parts to this shoe. A lot, okay, just for a sneaker in general. But again, that is the first flaw that I've kind of brought up. So let's go ahead and talk about the second flaw. Okay, the second flaw that I see in the shoe, and I don't know for sure if it is a flaw or if it was on purpose, but since this shoe has so many layers, right? You got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and then on the inside, that's like a regular shoe. There's so many layers, and then once you get to the back, and if you look down, hopefully I can present this well enough, but notice that there's more space here. There's more space on this side than there is on this side, right? It's kind of tight on this side, but then here you can put your finger in there and there's space, and also you could press down on it and there's space in there. What also happens is that since this is, I guess, the way that they pressed it or the way that they stitch it into the shoe, they're all like this. It's not just some are like this and some are not. But since it has more space on this side, let me see if I can show you the best way possible. So I'm as level as I can be, and you notice how this part bulges out just a little bit more than this side. And again, just keep in mind, I don't know if that's what they wanted to do, but that's just what happened. What also comes about after that this part bulges is that this track word is crooked. And I don't know if I can show you in the camera well enough, but let me see if I can get up closer. Okay, so this is like as straight as I can be. Now I know I'm being nitpicky as hell, but if you look at it, none of the track words on the back of any of the shoes are technically straight, and they're actually crooked. And I don't know how I noticed this, but I was just like playing around with the shoe, just staring at the shoe, and I was like, wow, like this one's crooked. Then I looked at the other pairs. Of course, you got another pair here, or the other pair to this one. Now notice that it kind of like is not necessarily as straight as you can be. And I understand my lens that I have here is has like a little bit of distortion, but notice it tilts down this way just a little bit, right? Because however they stitched it on this side with the space opening and then it being tighter on this side, that's just what happened. Now, are people going to notice that? Hell no. Nobody's gonna notice that. All they're gonna know is that you got Balenciagas on. That's all they know. But if you own the shoe, and if you want to know what may or may not have been a factory flaw, that definitely could have been a factory flaw for sure. Okay, so the third factory flaw that I think that happened with this shoe is that, and I hate to relate this to price, but the Balenciaga tracks are, let's just put it this way, they're not cheap, okay? This comes out to retail at $9.75 per shoe. Hefty price. I mean, but for fashion, high fashion brands, maybe that might be regular these days, which is still insane. But, you know, when you pay a lot of money, you want to make sure that your shoe that you have is really comfortable. You probably want that shoe to be the most comfortable shoe that you own. And I'm going to tell you right now, they put more effort into designing the aesthetic of the shoe than they did to figure out the comfortability of the shoe. And maybe I'm comparing this to like wearing Ultra Boosts or like Yeezys and stuff, because those shoes are probably the most comfortable shoes I've ever put on. Or maybe like, you know, Nike Flyknit trainers and stuff. Like those are so comfy. You know, it's unreal, right? It's like walking on clouds. And then when you put something like this on, it's bulky. It's actually kind of stiff. The upper part of the shoe is a little bit soft, but then the whole sole is really stiff. And you would think that because Balenciaga happened to make like shoe having like 6 something layers or like 4 different soles in one, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 soles here, you would be like, oh yeah, it's got to be like super comfortable. In reality, it's actually not that comfortable. And also, maybe this is not a factory flaw, but maybe it was just a decision that they made. But the soles that they chose, I personally thought that maybe the top sole and then going all the way down to the bottom, they could have done like a really soft sole and then a little bit less soft, a little bit less soft, and then make it harder and harder as you go down, and then the last sole on the bottom being as stiff as possible, which would have made like so much more sense. I don't know why they didn't do that. What I do wear in my shoe, just so people know, is I actually put a Dr. Scholl's in there. But that's not to say that I'm only using Dr. Scholl's for my Balenciaga. But because I use this in my Jordan 4s, I use this in my my Jordan 1s. In fact, I use it in most Jordans that I wear. Ironically, Jordans are basketball shoes and they should be comfortable, right? There are some shoes I don't wear it in, but I think it works perfect for this shoe because it gives it a little bit more of a cushion. Balenciaga does come with, or the track ones do come with like a tiny cushion, and the cushion doesn't raise from front to back. So the cushion is actually the same height from the front all the way to the back, to my understanding. I haven't ripped it all the way out, because if you rip it all the way out, it's like glued to the bottom. You don't want to do that, it's gonna mess it up. And then also, what could have been, I don't know if it was a factory flaw, it's more of like a design flaw, is that there's really no arch in this shoe. So if you don't happen to put any type of like heel support or heel pad, no different than what I put in here, a little Dr. Scholl's in there to give it a little bit of an arch. And if you have an arch in your foot, then this shoe is not going to work for you. I'm just going to tell you that. In fact, it's actually going to be quite uncomfortable. And if you stand for a long period of time without some kind of like little cushion in there, you're gonna be hating life. It's a very bulky shoe, it's thick, and like it becomes really stiff on the heel and also in the front like ball of your foot, which is not the greatest. And in fact, it almost makes you pissed off where you're like, man, I paid so much money. Yes, I love the look of the shoe, but it's actually not comfortable. So I recommend, if you can, actually almost for majority of the shoes that you wear, you know, get some little Dr. Scholl's, get you a little kick that's inside there, so then, you know, you can stand for longer periods of time. You can walk really, really far with this. Talking about the bottom sole. Quality of the bottom sole is as good as it is bad. Bottom sole is so stiff. Like, they used the stiffest rubber that you can imagine. And it's so stiff that no matter how much you walk in the shoe, it almost never wears out, which is a total plus, total positive. But the negative to that is that no matter how much you walk in the shoe, it forever feels as if it's like a new shoe. And it's like almost like it doesn't break in because it's just so stiff. Everywhere you walk, it literally, you could feel that you don't have like a groove that's kind of like grinded away at the shoe, which is good. It's like good and bad, right? You want that so then the shoe feels more comfortable, but then you don't want that because then the shoe will wear out. So where this like idea comes from that you like it to wear down is that if you look at my Jordan 1s here, hopefully it will focus. So if you see the bottom, see that this like bottom sole is starting to wear off a little bit. What kind of makes it a little bit more comfortable for you to walk in, but yet it's still like wearing it out. The naked eye can look down and see like, oh wow, your shoe is like getting worn out. For the Balenciaga, you can't tell. Like even if this was a really soft sole on the bottom and it kept wearing out, when you look down at the shoe, all you see is the upper sole, which is the sole that never gets touched by anything. So like that makes it like a million times better. So I don't know why they didn't design this like very bottom sole to be a softer rubber or whatever it is. So then it would make it a little bit more comfortable, make it wear out just a little bit more. This top part, it just covers the whole thing because it's so big. But again, I don't know why they did that. And it's just something that I caught and and obviously it's not like crazy enough for me not to buy the shoe. And I'll tell you right now where this kind of leads for me and buying these shoes, like the mindset behind it is that, again, you got to understand, like when you pay it for designer sneakers, you're paying for the look. You really are. You're paying for the aesthetic, you're paying for the name, you're paying for the look, not so much the comfortability. Another good example of that is Prada shoes. If anyone here has ever tried on Prada shoes, since the beginning of time for Prada sneakers have always been like super stiff. And even all the new Prada sneakers, if you even just hold them in your hand, first of all, they're really heavy, depending on which one you wear. And their bulky shoes are super, super stiff. And I don't know what type of leather that they choose, but the leather usually is just way too stiff. Again, those are like $1,000 shoes, right? Maybe starting at like $600, $700. It all just kind of depends. But those, they get really, really heavy. They get really expensive. But again, you could be paying for the name, right? But of course, being conscious about that. Like I'm conscious about knowing this, and I don't necessarily care about that. I just want the look, right? And I can, of course, substitute it, put a little Dr. Scholl's in there. It makes it super comfortable. And of course, I do love the shoe. Anyways, by closing out this video, I hope it was helpful. If there's more factory flaws that come up later on, I would definitely let you know. And also, if you have any other questions about the Balenciaga tracks, I'm not necessarily an expert. I just happen to own a couple of them. I love the shoe. I love talking about it. Anyways, with that being said, make sure you guys and girls keep it locked right here for all your latest information from music, fashion, to culture. It is your boy. I'll see you next time. Peace.